Okay, in this tutorial I'm going to show you some examples of how you can make your own jump rings. I would probably suggest using a tool specifically for this. I've got one just here, and it's on like a little mandrel, and I will show you how to do this as well, but I just wanted to show you on pliers. We can use these ones. I personally prefer doing it on bail making pliers because you know that all the loops are exactly the same, and the ones I have are in steps, so I've got a little bit of room to keep going on that same one. But just for an example, assuming that you've bought, you know, a simple kit, you'll have a pair of round nose pliers, and that's all you need to begin with. So where I said before about making sure it's not over, it doesn't matter so much here because we're just making it a little bit different. Now, if you can just see, I've actually gone behind the original one here. So what I keep doing is I keep doing the jump ring behind, because if I did it in front, obviously these are graduated, it would just get smaller and it would make a cone shape, which if you wanted to make what's called a wax wire comb, and you can put threads through them, that's perfectly acceptable, and you know, a lot of people do that rather than buying a wax wire comb tool. But this is just a nice simple way of trying to get jump rings the same size. So I'm just going to continue doing that for a moment until I've got a few. Okay, that's enough. So I've just got this coil here. Oh, there we are. Got this coil here. I'm just gonna cut it. Now, one thing I will say is, when I was first taught this technique, I was basically told just go in and cut. Now, as I've said, with flush cutter pliers, one side is flush and the other side has a bit of a dent on. And obviously for jump rings you want them to close properly, so you really want both sides to be flush cut. So what I prefer to do is, so now that's got a, let's just do that again. Oh, there we are. Be careful of the wire flying around. You want to go back in here and now these form together, and I like to pull this apart a little bit at this point because I want this to be able to close, and if I were to just cut it here, there'd be actually a slight gap, so you really want to just go over a bit. And if you can see, when that closes, it's going to close together because they're close to where they would be, where if I'd have done it at the point where it stopped, they wouldn't actually be as close. So that's just another little tip that you don't really know at first. Oh, marking on my nail varnish. Yeah, just if you work with wire, you'll soon find you often end up ruining your nails. Okay, so I flush cut that side, and again I'm just gonna move that out just a little bit. Just want a bit of space so that I can get in here, and again I want to make sure this is flush cut. Okay, and that's oh, not even on camera, sorry there. That's another jump ring, and again the two joints are going to be close together. And I'll just do a few more so you've definitely got it down. So again, cut that bit off. Actually hit me, so that hurt a little bit. Pull it out a little bit. This is also why I like these needle nose pliers, because they're quite thin, so they can get into these more annoying places that are quite small and difficult. Okay. There we go. Okay, so that's enough for now. And in case you aren't aware, you should know by now how to open and close jump rings, but I will just show you for the sake of this. You always go side to side like this. Oh. We always go like this to close the jump rings. You never ever pull that way. Never pull away. Just like opening and closing a door, do it that way. Never pull them away. So there you have a jump ring that we've just made. I will also show you the more professional tool specifically designed for jump rings. I'll also say that I'm using a 1mm wire, partly because I had it to hand, but I would never ever go underneath a 0.8 for jump rings because they need the strength. I've seen people try it with 0.6 and even 0.4 and they just don't work. They're not strong enough, you know, and if you put those in jewellery and someone pulls it even slightly, they're just going to pull apart. It's not worth it, so just don't do that. So I'm going to show you quickly how to use this tool if you do happen to buy one. They're called jump ring mandrels and available in a variety of places, and this is just one of the mandrels. I think it's the 1mm one, and it actually tells you what the internal diameter of the jump rings will be once you wrap them around. This is particularly important for mediums like chainmail where you need to know this information. So that's just a really good tool if you intend on, you know, going into other things later on, and it's just handy for your everyday making because obviously it saves you money long term if you can just make it out of your own wire. Oops, sorry. Especially if also you're doing it out of say making things out of coloured wire, then you have all your findings that match exactly. So to begin with, you put your wire through this way and just fold it over so that it's not going to go anywhere, and you start to wrap around. Now there is actually this bit here and you would just twist, but for the sake of being on camera that's quite difficult to view because I already tried and it didn't work very well, so I'm just going to do it this way. Now to begin with, obviously they don't sit nicely next to each other because the wire is just fighting you, but eventually they start to. You need to keep it tight, so hold on to the wire and, oh sorry, I'm completely off camera. Hold it tight and keep it going. And so you just continue as much as you want. Also, I will say that I'm using a 1mm wire. I think I mentioned that in the previous part of the video, and that affects how thick the jump rings are on the outside, because obviously if I was using a 0.8 it's going to be, you know, per part millimetre all the way around. It's going to give us a different outer gauge. So that's also something to be aware of if you are doing this for chainmail rather than just for everyday making. Okay, I'm just going to finish this here because I don't need any more. Obviously I'm just doing this for an example. You do as many as you need. Decide to start there. And then you've got the same type of spiral as before, and you just do the exact same thing I already showed you, and then flush cut on both sides, go in. I suppose it's slightly better that these actually are a little bit further apart because it's easier then to go in and cut. One. Again, just be careful of things flying off everywhere. I feel like I say that a lot whenever I'm doing wire work, but obviously wire does just like to ping. So I'll just do one more so you know for definite what you're doing. Yep, and then cut. So these are our jump rings from the mandrel. these are the ones that we did with our pliers. Just put that on there so you've got an idea, and obviously completely different sizes, but it's the same basic principle for making the jump rings.